Lisa, I love your facial expression as Brian was describing Mark Carney as an outsider. Conservatives would not classify Mr. Carney as an outsider at all, is my guess, right, Lisa?
Listen.
Christy Clark's past comes back to haunt her. Francois-Philippe Champagne is in the doghouse. Karina Gould has nowhere to run. And Mark Carney tries his hand at show business. We've joked about it before, but the Liberal Party is literally a circus.
Let's take a look.
Never.
But you voted in the race, did you not?
No, I didn't. And I never got a membership, and I never got a ballot. What I did, though,
I will say, Christy Clark, we reached out to the Conservative Party, who told us, in fact, that your membership was canceled.
Oh, well, why don't they come out and show my membership or my ballot? They never sent me any of those, although I wouldn't put it past them to manufacture one of them.
Man, they called your bluff.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you've heard.
This is old news at this point.
Yeah, old news being like a day or two
yesterday,
old.
Yeah.
But in case you hadn't, Christy Clark, as she was gearing up to make a serious run at the leadership for the Liberal Party, decided to start doing media tours. Now, before, she had been kind of a panelist on Vashi Capellos' Power Play, and she would provide the Liberal perspective on a lot of these, political issues going on. So, she has started going on other shows to talk about herself and why she's, super awesome and all of this stuff. But as you heard on CBC, they called her out for allegedly registering with the Conservative Party of Canada a couple of years ago in order to vote in a leadership race. Whose leadership race?
Pierre's leadership race.
Pierre's leadership race.
Or the one he was in. There was also other contenders, including Jean Charest.
Right. So she ended up doing that and was called out and even says, again, like these liberals do, the Conservative Party, yeah, I'm sure there's really something there. They probably made it up. Well, this is a screenshot taken directly from the Conservative Party registration system, where you can clearly see it says Miss Christina Joan Clark. Now this is, blown up, but her name is actually up in the top left. And it shows that she had a Conservative membership from June 2nd of 2022 until June 30th of 2023. Now it is no longer active, but that's not the point.
But the point is that period would have covered the leadership race where she was alleged to have voted for Jean Charest.
Well, and after this ended up coming out, she then admits it on Twitter, and she says, bleep happens, lesson learned. And she talks about how she, joined it to specifically vote for Jean Charest against Pierre Poilievre. And so, what are you lying for?
Well, and that's the thing. I had said it the other day on our live stream. Had she said, I signed up as a Conservative member just so I could vote for my friend Jean Charest, then I canceled the membership and I've never gone back since, I think that would have been a better approach than to deny it and then get slapped in the face with evidence. Right.
So it has come to nobody's surprise, where's the shocked Pikachu face when you need one, that today she has announced, I'm no longer running. It's not because of that, everybody. It's because I need to work on my French.
I mean, two things can be true at once, right?
But she had allegedly 100 or 200 people on the call last night when she was talking to people about this. You don't mobilize that many people unless you're kind of sure you know where you're going. You don't do all of that. Imagine being one of those people and then hearing, oh, well, sorry, everybody, my French isn't good enough. So, all the work that you've already done, thanks anyway. I wouldn't be too happy to hear that, right? It's like, I'm pretty sure you should know if your French is good enough before you go to all this trouble to organize all these people.
Now, to be fair, the Liberal Party did come out and say that they expect the new leader to speak English and French. So, I mean, they hadn't come out with that previously. They came out with that again within the last few days, possibly even Monday. No, it was Sunday. It was Sunday because it was our live stream.
Well, we have it on good authority that language doesn't matter in Canada, especially in Quebec.
It's not the language that matters, it's what is that they deliver to them.
But the language matters very much in Quebec.
No, trust me.
Good authority.
From one of the other leadership candidates, they assured us that it doesn't matter.
Trust me.
I'm trying to just keep a straight face. Anyhow, that's the end of the Christy Clark show. Now, the next Liberal leadership candidate to drop out, we are genuinely disheartened by it. And this is because we are now not going to enjoy 4 years of a tiny little chihuahua standing up and saying, "We will take no lessons from the government, Mr. Speaker." Right? And that is, of course, Francois Philippe Champagne.
It would have been entertaining.
But if you're wondering why he's not running, we found the reason. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the polls of the riding St. Maurice Champlain, which is the riding that is currently held by Francois Philippe Champagne. So he has a 6% chance of actually winning his own riding if an election were held today. So this would explain why he's not running for the Liberal Party leadership and why he didn't want to answer questions to reporters if he was running again. So that strikes off Francois Philippe Champagne. He's in the doghouse.
Well, and I think it's showing an important fact of why the Liberals want their leader to be bilingual is because they're fighting the bloc in Quebec. They're not fighting the Conservatives or the NDP. It's the bloc that they're up against. So they need to make sure that they're speaking the language of the people and hope that they can win back some of these seats that they've apparently lost.
Now, that brings us to someone that we were frankly shocked to hear is planning on launching her leadership bid campaign. I think it's Sunday or Monday of next week. And that's House Leader Karina Gould. Now, you may be wondering, why are we shocked that she's making a bid for the leadership? Well, because there's one small problem. I don't know where she's going to run. And this is what I mean. This is the poll for Burlington. Burlington is Karina Gould's riding. This shows that she has no chance of actually retaining this riding if an election were held today. There's a 21-point gap. Like, that is massive.
Gould has a less than 1% chance to win. She has the same chance as the NDP. This riding is a shoo-in for CPC candidate Emily Brown, as long as things stay the way they are. I wonder if Gould is hoping that by running for leader and maybe winning as leader, that the riding will magically turn red again. I wouldn't bet money on it, though.
Or she's going to just decide to run in a different riding and kick out whoever's there. Maybe she can kick out Greg Fergus where he is. I don't know.
But there's no safe ridings for Liberals in this country anymore. Like, again, Fergus's riding of Hull Erlenmeyer, but that's about it.
Yeah, there's one or two.
There's very few guaranteed liberal wins if we're looking at the polls today.
Now, let's get to Mark Carney. So Mark Carney, he did something. He decided to appear on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. Now, if you know anything about The Daily Show, it is essentially a liberal safe haven. Like, this is where the far left comes to, to hug each other and to sing Kumbaya. And people are talking about this like it was the best thing since Trudeau Mania in 2015. That Mark Carney was so charismatic and he was so amazing and he was so witty. And they seem to be operating under the assumption that this wasn't scripted, that he didn't know what Jon Stewart was going to say, that he wasn't prepared for for the dialogue that was happening. It was a little cringy, to be honest, and it was so obvious that Jon Stewart was given all of this material and he was told, this is what we're going to do. And Jon Stewart just said, okay, I'll just, put my own spin on it, but that'll be fine. He was hailing Mark Carney as the savior of the 2008 financial crash in Canada. He says on the show that if it weren't for you, Canada wouldn't have recovered, which is kind of ridiculous.
No, I think he's mistaking him with Harper. I know they kind of look the same, but they're different. Okay, very different.
So it was just kind of bizarre, but I know why they were doing that, because they know that a lot of American left-leaning people watch The Daily Show. Now, you don't have to be left-leaning to watch The Daily Show. Jon Stewart can be funny, but a lot of people do. And a lot of people in Canada who lean left, they also watch The Daily Show. But this is a good opportunity to kind of introduce Mark Carney to the masses, right? You put him on a popular show like that, and everyone's going to watch it, and then everyone's going to start talking about it. Now, Mark Carney wouldn't say whether he's actually going to run or not, but he all but said he's going to run.
Well, and what's he doing on a show like that anyways? The guy's a banker. He's
Right?
not a celebrity.
Well, and why are you going on that type of show? It's a little strange. I understand why they're doing it, and it's, in a way, it's smart, but again, this is how out of touch people are. The shows that Pierre Poilievre goes on are serious talk shows to talk about serious issues, to talk about what's going on in Canada, to talk about the plight of the Canadian people.
And how he's going to fix it.
Right. Now, Carney goes on and he's joking about the fact that, Canada and the United States are in this friends with benefits relationship. And it's just this kind of weird, cringe, Twilight Saga teen humor going on. And then Jon Stewart pulls out this picture of Trudeau and Poilievre, and then they start mocking both of them. And then Jon Stewart says, well, Poilievre, reminds me of this, this villain in, this teen movie type of thing. So they weren't just criticizing Poilievre. They were telling everybody, this is what you need to think of Poilievre.
Yeah.
This is what was going on here. And it was very clever, because on the front of it, you have the humor and everything like that, and that's drawing everybody in. But the undertone is, this is what you need to be thinking. And it was kind of disturbing the way they were doing it. So if you haven't seen it, you can watch it. And if you have seen it, go back and watch it, because it was carefully structured.
Well, and the thing I keep saying is the left is all about identity politics and, we don't want any more old white men in politics. Yet that's exactly what they're getting with Mark Carney. He's some rich old white dude. And I mean, what does he know about politics? He's never been a politician. Typically what happens within the party is you start as a backbencher, then you make it into cabinet, and then you work your way up to be leader. I mean, look at the previous leaders in the Conservative Party, and Pierre Poilievre included, he was a minister as well, that you start at the bottom and you work your way up. You don't just get handed the job.
Well, and remember, Mark Carney was the governor for the Bank of UK until I believe it was 2020. So he wasn't even in Canada for the first 5 years of Trudeau's reign. And he's been on global national companies on the boards. Brookfield is the latest one. So he's not really in Canada a lot. So you have a guy that has spent the last, let's just call it, almost 10 years, not really in Canada. And he's now saying, well, I understand the plight of ordinary Canadians.
He wants the cup back in Canada.
Yeah, he wants the cup back in Canada.
You check out our video on that ridiculousness.
And I know what it is to struggle with affordability. I've had to suffer living in a £15,000 per month, that's pound, not dollar, pound per month house while I was working for the Bank of UK over in England. I understand how difficult it is. Dude, you're literally everything that the left criticizes.
Yeah, he is everything that they say they hate, and they are rooting for him the hardest. I haven't heard anything about Chrystia Freeland. We've heard that she's mobilizing her base, but she hasn't announced anything yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the left does. Are they going to go for Chrystia Freeland because, girl power? Or are they going to go for the person that they claim that they despise, which would be Mark Carney? Because again, old, rich, white guy.
Now, let's take a look to see how some of the panelists on CTV are viewing how things are shaping up.
Christy Clark's assessment was basically the Prime Minister left it so that nobody has great options unless you've been organizing for the last year. That, in fact, is what I'm told she said to her core team on the call this morning. Is that your sense? Like, they're dropping like flies now. Dominic LeBlanc, François-Philippe Champagne, Melanie Joly, yourself, Christy Clark. Like, what does that say in the aggregate?
Well, a few things. So number one, I think it shows that this is going to be expedited, and it's completely normal for a bunch of people to kick the tires and then ultimately come to a conclusion that they're not going to run. Perhaps you actually end up having quite a few that run and they drop off as things progress, when maybe some type of deposit is due for paying to the party. So this is completely normal, but this is just very quick. So it feels, to Lisa's point, like it's been an eternity since last week, because every day there's somebody, if not two or three people, saying that they're not running for the leadership when they were speculated to be thinking about it, or frankly, they were actually organizing. So it feels a bit kind of weird because it's so quick, but this would be normal if it were expanded over a year, half a year, even 2 years at times, when some parties have that sort of runway. The second thing that I think it says, we sort of have the quarterfinals, the tennis analogy here, but the quarterfinals, the semis, before the finals. And that's normal as well. And it kind of goes to what I was discussing. But I think what's being set up is clearly a race that the party's going to have to decide. Do they want somebody that has been a part of the Trudeau government, that obviously has a skill set, that obviously has the capability to govern? They've been doing it for a while. They obviously know a lot of Liberals and have been sort of fighting the good fight, if you will. Or do you want an outsider? So it just feels like they've already decided, or it feels like it's starting to coalesce which outsider is going to remain standing in the finals. And I think we're probably going to start to see a candidate or two in the sort of other camp that they have been a part of the Trudeau government, and that will be the decision point essentially for the party.
Lisa, I love your facial expression as Brian was describing Mark Carney as an outsider. Conservatives would not classify Mr. Carney as an outsider at all, is my guess, right, Lisa?
Listen, let me just say that he's as much an outsider as I am an outsider. This guy's been the Trudeau whisperer since 2020. And before that, he's been in his ear on COVID. He was part of Building Back Better. He chairs an economic task force. I think they wanted to replace both Morneau and Chrystia Freeland with them. As we'd say in Cape Breton, butter wouldn't melt in this guy's mouth. He is not an outsider. It's a valiant effort to claim that he is one in order to paint a different narrative. But the proof is in the pudding. And don't equate just the fact that you don't have a high public profile to the ordinary Canadian voter as being an outsider, because people are going to see right through that.
He is going to, I think it's clear based on that interview last night, Tom, that will be part of his pitch, right, to Liberal voters. I am not what the other ones are, like Chrystia Freeland or Karina Gould. I have not been on the inside of this government that you do not like. Do you think, A, that message will resonate with Liberal voters? And B, like, beyond that, the next step is obviously that 2-day campaign or whatever he's going to have to the general electorate.
I think that to your first point, that there are going to be a heck of a lot of Liberal voters who will see him as something fresh, something different from what they've been used to with the Trudeau era. It's always been the same gang tightly controlling the Prime Minister's office, the Privy Council office. That's the type of thing that Canadians found stifling. And I do think that Carney last night showed a side of him that I've known for some time, Everybody was always saying, oh, he's going to be like Ignatieff, he can't talk to people and so forth. And people saw somebody who was able to riff for the better part of 20 minutes with Jon Stewart and come off quite well. With regard to the wider public, it's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on two things. One is the polling numbers, because my theory, and a lot of people in the polling industry tend to agree, that a lot of the votes that were said to be going to Poilievre and the Conservatives were people who were just fed up with Trudeau. They just didn't want to see the guy anymore. And the pious scolding, to quote Steve Marr's great line. So I think that there is a fair bit of that fresh air, that freshness that Carney represents, deep experience, tons of expertise, and the ability to talk with people, as we saw. He's going to be launching in a town where he went to high school, in Edmonton. Word is he might even be running there. It's going to be worth watching. I think that the overall Canadian public is going to give him a chance. And I got some very interesting information from one very large cultural community, ethnic cultural community over the weekend, that had been drifting over to Poilievre and the Conservatives, looking to see which way things were going to go. And a lot of them are now heading back to the Liberals because they think Carney's going to win it.
Well, we kind of predicted that, right?
No, well, there's
going to be some people that will come back to the Liberal brand and vote Liberal because they've changed the leader. We know that. But by and large, Canadians are fed up.
Well, and here's the thing. These guys seem to think that the vast majority of Canadians are morons. That, oh, well, you know what? Trudeau's gone, so who cares about the fact that the Liberal Party has completely destroyed this country? We have a new guy saying that it's going to be different this time. Don't worry, we've changed, and everything's going to be all right.
A new guy who supports the exact same policies.
Right. This is the thing, and all of these Liberals voted for them. They literally just turned around in the last couple of weeks and said, crap, I'm going to lose my seat. Get Trudeau out of here. He shouldn't be here. But then when it came down to, well, what do you have to say about his legacy? Well, now they have to square how they voted. Right? With Trudeau.
You guys voted for this mess. Like Freeland and Gould, when you guys are doing that leadership race, you're going to have to answer for that.
So they then turn around and say, well, he did a lot of great things and we've done a lot of great things. Okay, so then why are you getting rid of? Oh, right. Because Canada hates you guys and Canada hates Trudeau.
Well, look what they did to us.
Well, this is the thing. They seem to think that Canada hated Trudeau because he's Justin Trudeau. A part of it is true, but mostly Canadians hated Trudeau because he led the Liberal Party, all of them, down this path, and the entire Liberal Party destroyed this country.
And none of them had the backbone to stand up and say, this isn't right, I'm not doing it. I mean, I think you know better than anyone that sometimes that's what you have to do.
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. Like, it's easy to just sit down and shut up.
But it's hard to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, and I'm not doing it. I'm going to do the right thing. Now,
you can see the crush that Tom Mulcair has on Mark Carney.
Oh, for sure. Like, he should just be his campaign manager, seriously.
So,
or like his PR guy or something.
Yeah. But I found something interesting that he said there. He said, well, the same team isn't going to be around Mark Carney. Well, is that true? Because Gerald Butts, from what we've heard, is there. He was around Trudeau. Allegedly, Katie Telford is kind of like tiptoeing her way now over to Mark Carney from Justin Trudeau. So what is really changing here? I don't think there's a lot. But he also says, oh, well, Carney's going to launch, in Edmonton, and he may run around there. And time out. So Mark Carney is allegedly a really smart guy, brilliant guy. He wants to run in Edmonton. Let's take a look at Edmonton. Ladies and gentlemen, the picture you are looking at is not Hawaii in the Pacific Ocean. This is the riding colors around Edmonton, Alberta. And the island in the middle is
Desjardins riding,
Yes.
I'm guessing.
Well, that's the NDP riding. So everywhere else is pure blue conservative.
Well, it's Alberta.
But this is where allegedly Carney wants to run. So be my guest, Mr. Carney. If you would like to run in Edmonton, if you want to run there, be my guest. Because I think that people around Edmonton and especially in Alberta, they've had enough.
It's a very odd decision to me that the leader of the Liberal Party would try to run in Alberta, which I think they have, I want to say 34 seats, and 30 of them currently are Conservative.
Yeah, and like very, very few are expected to remain non-conservative through the next election.
Right. I wonder if it's some sort of strategy, because usually we have our Liberal leaders out of Quebec or out of Ontario, and maybe some on the East Coast. But for Alberta, I wonder if they're trying to kind of like bring them in, like, you know,
infiltrate them. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's a better word.
Well, I don't know, but one of the things that the Liberal Party has to be very careful of, and Tanya hit the nail on the head, is if they don't win a lot of ridings in Quebec, it's kind of like the Conservatives in the GTA. They won't win the next election. So if they actually don't have a Quebec origin leader or a leader that is close to Quebec, they may not do well at all in the province of Quebec when it comes to the actual election, because you're going to have a lot of people in Quebec that are just going to think, okay, so great, the Liberal Party has a guy from out west. He's not going to care about Quebec. He's not going to care about my interests. He's not going to care about anything.
Yeah, they'll feel disconnected.
So they will either move to the Conservatives, or more likely they will move to the Bloc.
Yeah, the Bloc is the dominant party in Quebec. The Bloc and the Liberals, those are the two parties that win the vast majority of the seats. The Conservatives are usually the fourth party. So
that may actually allow the Bloc to have even a higher chance of becoming the official opposition. The other option is that these people may shift to the NDP and maybe give them a shot at some of the ridings out there. But I wouldn't count on that.
Yeah.
So anyhow, folks, this is the latest when it comes to the Liberal leadership race. So I am going to be very entertained if Karina Gould is actually serious about launching a leadership campaign, because I don't know where the heck she thinks she's going to run. We've been wondering where Mark Carney thinks he's going to run. Okay, you're going to run in Edmonton. Good luck to you. You'll be a Liberal Party leader with no seat in the House of Commons. So have fun with that. So in all actuality, who knows? It may end up be Chrystia Freeland that leads this party through to the next election. And you know, that would be a belated Christmas present for all of us. As much as we hate hearing her speak, it would be absolute entertainment to see her in a debate with Pierre Poilievre.